Great, so I'm gonna get started. Thank you, first of all, everyone, for taking the time to join me here in this session. People are still coming in, so I'm gonna continue to admit them. But basically, this session is gonna walk through the OpenClass platform, which Long Island University is gonna be piloting through this next year at least. And so basically, OpenClass is a tool for instructors to build really good assignments basically around whatever they're teaching in their classes to reinforce learning. And the reason why these assignments are really effective in helping students retain this information is these leverage cognitive neuroscience principles proven to optimize knowledge retention for students, things like spaced repetition, retrieval practice, feedback loops. I'll walk through this all in a second. Just concepts proven to optimize knowledge retention. And then machine learning is the other aspect of this, to be able to identify knowledge gaps for students and attempt to bridge those knowledge gaps in having these assignments be adaptive to unique student needs. And so that's basically an overview of what these assignments are. The idea is students would go into a nursing class or into a pharmacy class, leave that class, and then these would sort of be like complementary pieces to sort of like hammer home whatever you're teaching. And basically in this workshop, I'm going to walk through first the student-facing end to provide more context on how these actually work and like what these look like for students. And then I'm going to pause for questions. If anyone has any, feel free to deliver them at that point. And then I'm going to walk through the instructor-facing end after that to show what it looks like as an instructor to build out these assignments for your students. So I'm going to start with the screen share, and then I'm going to pause for questions again after that. Cool, so now I'm sharing my screen here. So here's an example of a review assignment. My background's not in medicine, but I did my best to build like a muscles review assignment here. If this is like an orthopedics class, for example. But whatever you're teaching, the idea is that you would be building these assignments. So try to connect this to, if you have a pharmacy class or a nursing class, whatever concepts that you're teaching. But basically, OpenClass integrates with Blackboard. I'll send over that information once we fully set up the integration. I'm still waiting to hear back from LIU's IT team. But basically, as an instructor, you build out these review assignments. As soon as you publish them, they would be automatically posted to your Blackboard class page, and students would also be emailed a link to access your assignments. They'd click the page, click the link, and it would take them to an overview page that looks like this. They'll be able to see, okay, here's how these review assignments work. This is what's being covered, bones, joints, and muscles. And they'll be able to click this begin assignment button to start taking this assignment. And basically every review assignment will generate questions of the same format, where it starts with what's called a retrieval question, something that looks like this. What is the best next step in managing this described situation? Students could read the situation, see the picture here, and enter their own solution in here. The idea is this idea of retrieval practice, or the generation effect, that the most effective way to study is via testing rather than just reading something. So the idea is that students would have to interact with this concept and attempt to self-generate that response here. Again, my background's not in medicine, so students would be able to enter whatever their response is in this text field, be able to save their response and continue. As soon as they save their response, they're immediately shown a targeted feedback page, which looks like this, where students are able to see, here's my solution, and then be able to compare their solution to the instructor's solution, be able to see, okay, did I get this correct? Okay, yes, I did, or no, I did not, and be able to get sort of like the instructor's perspective on this question to be able to see, okay, here's how the instructor says that this situation should be handled, be able to immediately review their feedback here, but then not just the instructor's solution, but also on these feedback pages are specific excerpts from whatever content was covered in class. So that could be a few slides from a presentation. I didn't have an orthopedic surgery presentation, so I just used one that I had on my laptop, but pretend this is relevant information here. Students would be able to go through these slides, be able to see, okay, yeah, this makes more sense. This is pretty flexible to work with pretty much any resource type that you could cover in your class. So like here's like a 2-minute clip of this YouTube video's feedback. This integrates with Panopto. If you use Panopto for like lecture recordings, You could add web pages, you could add MP4 files, PDF files, images, things like that to show as feedback in addition to your solution to this question. And then these feedback pages conclude with a multiple choice, what's called a mastery question, which basically serves to make this feedback more interactive and more engaging for students and sort of follow up on this initial retrieval question. So for this example, if the patient instead had a fracture, how would you manage that instead? This student would be able to say, I think it's this one. And whether they get this correct or incorrect, it will give them more feedback for why that answer is correct or why it's incorrect. So correct fractures require casting. Okay, great, got that correct. As soon as they get this mastery question correct, they're able to continue the assignment. And since this was just a demo assignment, I only have one question in here, but typically it would keep generating questions until the student has achieved mastery. And as you can see, my mastery progress has jumped up to 13.3%. The students will be able to see their mastery for specific concepts in here. So this student, after getting this question on muscles correct, is now at 40% mastery of that. And again, the idea with this is just sort of like at your own pace learning and be able to sort of like personalize the experience more for students. So for example, if a student really understands muscles and joints really well, but struggles with bones or whatever concept is relevant in your classes that you're teaching, the assignments will then adapt to give that student more questions and more content on bones to sort of get them up to par with the rest of the class. So if students really understand concepts, these assignments should be pretty quick for them. If they don't understand these concepts, they'll be able to get more practice to sort of get them up to par with the rest of the class. And one last thing with these review assignments is by default, all of these assignments are cumulative, which basically the idea of this is spaced repetition. So like if this is week 8 of a standard 15-week course, that week 8 review assignment is going to cover mostly week 8 content, but some of the questions are going to be pulled from your first 7 weeks, whatever questions were in those first 7 review assignments. The idea, like I said, is spaced repetition, that reviewing previously learned concepts at spaced intervals dramatically improves learning. So students are going to continue to practice whatever concepts you covered earlier in the class throughout the duration of the semester. And that's how these review assignments work. So like I said, I wanted to pause here. If anyone has any questions about how these work for students or things like that, please speak up and let me know, and I'll do my best to answer this.
Hi, so the questions and answers for the questions on the bank created by the faculty?
Yeah, so that's one of the things with these assignments is instructors have full control over the content of these. So to answer your question, yes, the expectation would be for instructors to provide the solution to these questions and whatever resources are attached to them. And I'll walk through in a second what this looks like from an instructor end to build these out. But yes, instructors would be expected to build these out, but then instructors could use these assignments for, if you teach the same class in the spring and then you teach that again in the fall, you'll be able to clone these assignments really easily. And also if there's other instructors, for example, if multiple instructors in the College of Pharmacy teach classes that overlap with each other, those instructors would be able to share assignments with each other. So it could just be like 1 or 2 faculty members building out these assignments and then other instructors just using those assignments. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Sure. Any other questions on the student-facing end?
Hey, Alec, it's Tina
Hi,
from Pharmacy. Thank you for showing this to us. Can you give us just a short overview of your background and how this was developed and the plan for LIU, I guess, moving forward? Because I know we heard it when we first chatted, but I think it would be helpful for the others in the call to say, where is this coming from?
Yeah, exactly. Sure. So yeah, my background is I'm a graduate of the University of Arizona, and like clearly I've been very passionate about education for a while, and coming up with ways to sort of like improve the educational experience. So one of my sort of like qualms or concerns when I was a student at the University of Arizona was just this idea that there's one instructor and N students, 40 students, 400 students in a class, that it's sort of inherently impossible for the one instructor to reach the unique needs of all of their students. So I was trying to think of like, what's a good supplementary component to sort of provide like that at your own pace learning, listen to like the cognitive neuroscience of like, these are things that sort of like make it stick best for students. And then being able to use the machine learning stuff as well to be able to identify knowledge gaps and be able to bridge those knowledge gaps and have these assignments be personalized for unique student needs. So that was sort of like where this came from. My background is sort of like a perfect mix of the things that went into this project. So like I said, the things were cognitive neuroscience and machine learning, and I studied computer science and psychology at the University of Arizona. That after I graduated from the University of Arizona, that computer science degree ended up moving more towards like machine learning and data science for some of the relevant technologies that like went into this project and being able to build out this tool. Really, I'm a one-person company with this, so like I designed it, developed it, all of that stuff, and so like the computer science component was really relevant to that. And then the psychology component, that's just always been an interest of mine of how can you best make things stick, and doing sort of like that research into like the psychology of like how people learn, which after I graduated University of Arizona ended up expanding into like more cognitive neuroscience of different principles of like active learning, like how can you make like an effective, like interactive, engaging experience for students, and then things like I mentioned, like retrieval practice, spaced repetition, the importance of feedback was very relevant from like that psychology core that ended up expanding into like cognitive neuroscience. And so that's sort of like my background, where this idea came from. And then with regards to LIU piloting this, basically we're going to have a free 1-year pilot for anyone at LIU that wants to use this. So like interested faculty members from the College of Pharmacy, from the College of Nursing are welcome to use this, or outside of either of those colleges, just any faculty member or instructor from LIU will be able to fully use this for the next year. The idea really that I'm trying to push with this as well is you could almost think of like your first semester using this kind of as like an investment into your future courses, in terms of you build these assignments out once. I'll walk through the instructor facing end in a minute to show like how that works. But basically that's been probably my biggest focus since January, was making these assignments as easy as possible to build out for instructors. So that I was trying to make this easy, one, but two, also keep in mind it's hopefully a one-time cost of building out these assignments and then just being able to quickly clone them for when you teach your same classes in the future. I'll walk through how all that looks. But so this will be completely free for any instructor to use this for the next year. My hope is that at that point, we'll be able to reach sort of an institutional contract beyond the pilot to be able to continue this for even longer. But the business model with OpenClass is it's always going to be something that'll be free for instructors, and then trying to charge for institutional licenses. So that's something that nobody on here really needs to worry about, is just sort of like me negotiating with the provost's office and academic decision makers at LIU a year from now about sort of like the future of the LIU standalone environment. And hopefully we'll be able to continue that going for a long time. But in terms of like putting in that initial investment, even if I'm not able to reach that contract with LIU as a whole, there will be a fallback plan for instructors that have already built out their assignments to continue using OpenClass. Just there may be some things that have the advantage of LIU having that institutional license, including that Blackboard integration and having a single sign-on for any students or instructors to be able to log into OpenClass with their LIU net ID and things like that. So there are some advantages, but even if you build out the assignments and worst comes to worst, you'll still be able to use your assignments throughout as long as you want to use these for.
This is Jane. I have a couple of questions. So the first one is, you said this is your company, which I think is fantastic. So it's really nice to, I guess, talk to whoever developed this, but who's going to be providing the technical support for this, for students and for faculty?
So that'll be me as well, mostly. I actually have a few people on my team now helping with support specifically. But but still while we're in like the relatively early stages of getting more pilots and like getting more instructors using this tool, I hope to be like very hands-on in the customer support. I'll show you what that looks like in a minute from the instructor facing end, but basically the idea is, one, being able to schedule Zoom workshops such as this to walk through like, here's how the tool works, like here's how you build out these assignments, things like that. And then also instructors are able to create support tickets. So like if there's anything that you don't understand, anything that's confusing, any bugs or like weird things going on with the platform, you'll be able to submit a ticket, which will then go to me or possibly my team if I decide to delegate it off, to be able to hopefully be responsive and like help with those things. But that's sort of like the initial support plan now, is just like a very hands-on approach. Any instructors that are interested in this, I'm very responsive to email. And just, again, this is my company, like I said, and just like a project that I'm really passionate about. So I'm very willing to work with any instructors and like help them get acclimated to the system and figure it out. And if it gets to the point where there's, you know, the support is like a little bit overwhelming or something like that, another thing we've done at other places is I've done trainings with sort of like instructional designers to teach them this system. So there's, you know, potentially other help from LIU instructional designers to help faculty members.
Okay, what about students? That would be the same for students? Like if students need help?
If students need help, yeah, they're not able to submit a support ticket. They can reach out through, there's a contact form that's linked on every page on the website. I'll show you what that looks like in a second too. Students are free to either email me, or if they email an instructor, sometimes like the instructor sort of serves as the middleman, to be able to forward like any requests to me, and I'll be able to respond to those things as well.
Okay, and then my other question is, so you keep talking about Blackboard integration. Does that only refer to like the one-stop sign-on, or is there more to this integration?
Yeah, so the Blackboard integration will do 4 things. First is the single sign-on. So nobody at LIU is gonna need like an account with OpenClass and like sign up or anything like that. We're still setting up the environment, but basically how it'll work is, once it's set up, you'll be able to go to liu.openclass.ai, log in with your LIU net ID, and then you're in. And that's the SSO part, single sign-on part. Number 2 that the integration supports is enrollment syncing. So it'll pull, here's all the classes as an instructor that I'm teaching from Blackboard. It will allow you to create a class on OpenClass and connect it to one of those classes. And then for students, it'll also pull their classes that they're enrolled in and be able to say, okay, this student's enrolled in this class on OpenClass through that enrollment sync. 3 is assignment syncing. So anytime you create an assignment, it'll automatically be published back to your Blackboard class page. And 4 is grade syncing. So as students complete these assignments, these review assignments are pretty much all or nothing. Once the student achieves mastery or runs out of questions, they'll get full credit. If they don't complete the assignment, they'll get a 0. But that's the last thing, is just grade syncing back and forth from OpenClass to Blackboard.
Thank you.
Sure, thank you. Any other questions on the student-facing end? Otherwise, I'll walk through the instructor-facing end, and hopefully that'll clarify some other potential questions or anything else that you have. And then again, after the instructor-facing end, I'll take more questions if anything is still unclear. But last chance.
I just had just one more question about the spaced repetition questions.
Mm-hmm.
So are those, does the instructor choose which ones to come in from previous assignments, or is that like randomly selected?
Yeah, that's through OpenClass. So the instructors don't need to worry about like incorporating spaced repetition through these assignments. That's sort of like the advantage of technology, is spaced repetition is really difficult for instructors to just implement in a standard class, whether they try having like review days or trying to like mix up concepts on standard like worksheets or things like that. It can be really difficult and hard to implement well. The idea with OpenClass is if students struggle with early on concepts, those questions are going to be prioritized in later assignments. So the instructors don't need to do anything. That's just on OpenClass to try to sort of find that perfect balance of giving students questions that they previously struggled with throughout the duration of the course, and like continuing to give them more review and practice to get them up to par with those concepts.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure. Cool. So now I'll move on to the instructor facing end and show some cool things and like how it works to build these and what the metrics look like. So here's an example assignment from one of our classes from the from last spring. This is a computational linguistics assignment, so like ignore the content here, but these metrics pages all look the same, where instructors will be able to see an overview of how long the assignments are taking students, see like a little distribution of the time to complete and the questions to complete. And then all of their questions are shown here, sorted by default by lowest accuracy on that multiple choice mastery question. So the idea that I'm really trying to promote with this is the idea of data-driven learning, to be able to see, okay, students didn't really understand this concept or this question. Why are they not getting this correct? Is it a confusing concept? Is this question like worded ambiguously? Like maybe the action from students from this is to update the question, fix the question, or maybe their action is and decision is, hey, this might just be like a hard concept. I'm going to go in my next lecture and discuss this concept in more detail to help students sort of get up to par with this. So you'll be able to go through all these questions, see what your students understand and don't understand, and make decisions according to the data. So that's what these metrics look like. There's also an assignment link. Like I said, by default, through the Blackboard integration, the assignment links automatically posted to Blackboard and emailed to students. But if you want this for, if you have like your own web page or your own like materials, or for whatever reason, and you just want the assignment link, you can have that. You could share it with your students in like discussion boards or things like that outside of OpenClass. So you can access that there. There will be a sync grades button to sync grades automatically from OpenClass to Blackboard. And you can also download the grades as CSV. So that's what these metrics look like. And then here's what a class page will look like for an instructor is just like this. You'll have your class, all of the active assignments will be listed or inactive assignments, and you'll either be able to build an assignment or a quiz, which in this workshop, I'm not really going to discuss quizzes, but we enable two different assignments. One are the review assignments, which I just demoed. The other are quizzes, which are multiple choice quizzes that allow students to re-quiz if they fall below a certain mastery threshold. So like if you already implement like Blackboard quizzes or something like that, this could potentially be a good replacement to that. But basically I'll walk through building a review assignment on here. Is you'll click this button and it'll take you to the assignment builder. You could give your assignment a name. So again, I've been just working with a lot of like linguistics classes, so that's kind of what's on my mind. So parts of speech, review assignment, give it a title. You'll be able to add any of your resources that you covered. So for example, I have a elbow casting video. You can add a YouTube video. So this is pretty flexible. Right now it supports YouTube videos, Panopto videos, web pages, MP4 files, image files, PDFs. So pretty flexible to handle hopefully any of the resources that you may cover in your class. This YouTube video, give it a title. And I'll also add like a PDF presentation. So like if you have a PowerPoint or a keynote that you present in your class, you can upload that. So you upload your resources and then you're basically writing questions around whatever you covered in like this parts of speech review assignment. So it's going to cover these two resources. Like I said, every question starts with that open-ended retrieval question where students have to interact with this concept and self-generate a response. So like what's an adjective? After they submit the response to that retrieval question, they're going to be shown that targeted feedback, which includes the instructor's solution, which will enter here, modifies a noun. You'll be able to select specific excerpts that you covered that specifically relate to this concept. So you'll be able to say, okay, I talk about adjectives from 2:30 to 5:52 in this YouTube clip, and then, hey, this presentation slide's relevant, this presentation slide's relevant, this presentation slide's relevant. So students will then retrieval question, targeted feedback, and conclude with that multiple choice mastery question that follows up in the retrieval question. So give an example. of an adjective. The house is blue. You'll be able to say, okay, this is the option. For any of the options, correct or incorrect, you could leave more feedback for why it's correct or incorrect. So you could say this is a noun. And that's basically one question. You'll notice that the question turned pink, indicating that it's published now. This is sort of like the bare bones minimum of what a question needs is just retrieval question, solution, and any of the targeted resources as feedback in that multiple choice mastery question. If you still want more information for your question, so for example, the sample question that I walked through had an image associated with it. You can add an image to your question, an image to your solution, an image to this multiple choice question. You can add details if you want. Here are more details. You can add a hint, and you could also allow your students to upload an image as their solution. So for example, I know there's some like chemistry classes that may have you like draw like a structure, take a picture of it and upload that with that question. But more or less, that's one question. I've been recommending between 7 to 10 questions per assignment. And that's sort of like the bare bones minimum of this is how you build assignments. Once you get comfortable with this and want to embrace more the adaptive nature of these assignments, you can also add topics to customize these a little bit more. This is optional, but basically helps with that like adaptive format of these, like I mentioned. So you could have like nouns might be a topic and adjectives might be a topic for this assignment. And maybe adjectives are a little bit harder to master than nouns and just be able to provide that customization. And then for each of your questions, you'll be able to say, okay, this is a question in adjectives and sort of tag the topics with these questions. You could set additional settings in here. You could set a due date. Hey, I want this to be due next Monday or whatever date you want. Like I said, by default, every assignment is all encompassing or cumulative to be able to deliver these, to be able to incorporate spaced repetition. If for whatever reason you want like a standalone assignment that doesn't do that, you can change this toggle. Those are the additional settings. You can preview what your assignment looks like as you're building it by clicking this button. And when you're comfortable with your assignment, the last thing will just be publishing these. If you want to build your assignments out ahead of time, you can do that and schedule these to publish at a given time. So maybe I want this to publish like next Monday at 3 p.m. Or you could just publish it right away. As soon as the assignment's published, it'll be posted back to your Blackboard class page, like I said, and emailed to students. And as an instructor, you'll be taken to that metrics page to sort of like track student progress as they're taking these assignments. And that's what the instructor facing end looks like. And yeah, any questions that you may have on how this all works now, everything from the student facing end, the instructor facing end, what the LIU integration might look like, or if there's anything else unclear about like how to build these assignments out, yeah, please let me know. I'm all ears right now.
Alec, can you just discuss the mastery rate, how that's calculated, I think you had mentioned like an all or none or something like that.
Yeah. So basically, as part of the metrics, I'll go back to like what it looks like completed. These assignments will continue generating questions for students from your question pool until the student has achieved mastery. If a student continuously just misses all of your multiple choice questions, the assignment's going to take them longer. So imagine if you had 10 questions in your question pool that we just built out here, and let's say a student is just going through this and somehow manages to miss every single multiple choice question, they're not going to have mastered your assignment. They'll have completed your assignment through answering all of the questions, but it'll say, okay, this student didn't master this yet. And so that's basically what the mastery rate is what percentage of your students completed these assignments via achieving mastery versus just answering all of your questions. Hopefully this is pretty high. If you have a low mastery rate, the best thing you can do as an instructor is just add more questions to your question pool. That's probably what it's signaling. And as I showed, you can customize what mastery looks like. So you could say, if you don't have a topic in here, basically it'll take students 4 to 7 correct questions to show that they've mastered the concepts. Or if you have multiple topics in here, you can customize them. So you could say, okay, this might be an easier concept that only takes students 2 to 3 correct questions, or maybe it's a hard concept that takes 6 to 11 questions. So you can sort of like have that flexibility in customizing these. But yeah, basically the idea is hopefully this mastery rate is pretty high for your assignments, like 98% or close to 100%. Yeah, does that answer the question?
Yeah, and for pulling in questions from the bank,
Mhm.
it's not really going to work if you don't have that many assignments set up, right?
Yeah, so the idea is, at least with like the initial batch of LIU instructors, you'll probably be writing like most of the questions and providing most of the content yourself. But then some of the things that can be done with that after you build out these assignments are, I'll walk through what it looks like cloning assignments. But basically, let's say you're teaching a nursing class in the spring and then you teach the same class in the fall, you'll be able to clone your assignments into your new class, so you don't have to do anything the next time. You could add questions, remove questions, update them however you want. And you could also do this for different instructors. So for example, if two instructors are teaching different sections of the same class, one instructor could potentially build out these assignments themselves, or the two instructors could sort of collaborate on these assignments and clone them into each other's assignments, or excuse me, classes, if that makes sense, to sort of collaborate a little bit on these.
Hi, Alec, this is Anna from the College of Pharmacy.
And
A couple of things. When you build an assignment, or when an instructor builds an assignment, is it in the instructor's account or is it in the College of Pharmacy account? Like, who has access to those questions?
so when you build an assignment, by default, everything will just be private only for you to have the assignment.
Okay.
But some of the things that we can work on and that I can set up is sort of having both. So you'll have your own class, and then you can have a separate class with like the entire College of Pharmacy, for example. And if you want to share your assignments with the rest of the college, you can clone your assignments into that class. And then any of the instructors from the College of Pharmacy that want to reuse your assignments will be able to clone the assignments from the shared class to their private class too. So in short, it's basically up to the instructor. If you want to keep all of your assignments completely private, you can, or if you want to collaborate and share them with your peers and other instructors at LIU, that's also feasible.
Okay, thank you. And I guess when you're building assignments that spiral prior concepts, does it automatically pull from that instructor's course, or like where does it pull the old questions from?
Yeah, so everything's automatically pulled from your current class. So for example, here's one class is just LIU Health Professionals. And so right now I just have the one muscles review assignment, but as soon as I build a new review assignment on top of that, it's gonna say, okay, muscles review assignment was a previous assignment, gonna pull from there. And then you have your week 3 assignment, gonna pull from the previous 2. Week 4 assignment, gonna pull some stuff from the first 3 weeks, and so on. But it's just pulling from your current class. So it's not gonna pull outside from other classes and get sort of content that may not be relevant for that current class.
Right. I guess the reason I'm asking is a lot of our courses are team taught. So let's say I am teaching with another faculty member and I create an assignment, pull it into the course, and then the second faculty member creates an assignment. Will it now pull from some of my assignment?
So that's all class dependent. So first of all, a big goal of this is doing the collaboration as you're talking about in like these team taught classes. So I think that's a great use case. In terms of like the spaced repetition part and pulling assignments, if you and the other instructor have 2 separate classes, you'll be able to clone whatever assignments you want into your own respective classes. But OpenClass itself will only pull questions for a student in your class from assignments that are within your class, or for the other instructor, it's only going to pull previous questions from that instructor's class.
Okay, thanks. And one more question. When you're looking at the statistics, you said you could download grades. Can you also export like individual student data, or is it just aggregate data? Like, can you see what each individual student, like how they responded?
Yeah, sorry, hang on one second. Yeah, so you'll be able to click this download grades button, and you'll be able to see from the CSV that's generated, each individual student, their grade, how they completed the assignment, if they did, And like there's a notes section that includes like more information, like if the student completed it late, that'll all be marked in the CSV. But yeah, you'll be able to see individual student grades from that.
Does it also tell you how much time individual students spent in the assignments?
As of now, it does not give like individual student data. That's something I'll have to think about more. I would say as of this moment, I'm probably inclined not to provide that information, just in terms of like student privacy, that like I want this to be a really great tool for students to like not have to like sort of like have stress-free learning and not have to worry about like what their instructor is going to see or not going to see and just worry about other things. This is purely meant as like at your own pace, get you up to par with the rest of the class. So right now it's not feasible to see how long each individual student took beyond just like these overall metrics. So for individual students, no.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, no problem. Any other questions?
Alec, how are others? I know you mentioned in our last workshop that you have a few professors at University of Arizona who are using this.
Mm-hmm.
How are they incorporating it into their class in terms of like class requirements? Is it that as a student enrolled in this course, you have to just complete each assignment and achieve a certain mastery rate in order to get class participation credit or whatever that is? Or are they? Or is it just like,
yeah, so pretty much every class that's currently using OpenClass has these as like a certain percent of the final grade. And as you said, like since these are all or nothing, it does make sense kind of as like a participation grade, or just like, you know, maybe a 10% of the class grade is based on completing these OpenClass review assignments. But students right now can achieve full credit either by achieving mastery or answering all of the questions. And one of the reasons that it's kind of a cool format, like one of the things that I really like about this is it gets away from like the punitive assignment strategy where students are sort of disincentivized to learn because like if they miss a question, they're going to lose points on their grade. Whereas OpenClass sort of has like the opposite thing where the students are incentivized to learn by the idea that if they if they take this seriously and go through these questions, they're going to achieve mastery sooner and the assignment will be over sooner for them if they try, rather than if they just like sort of like BS their way through it and just try to get this done as quick as they can. It sort of has like that weird thing that like students are incentivized to try, because if you try and get these questions right, the assignment will be over quicker and you'll be able to master these things quicker. Does that make sense?
yeah. So again, mastery is, you define that. So let's say you have a 10 question assignment.
Mm-hmm.
You can say that as an instructor, I define mastery as achieving or getting 7 of the 10 correct. Can you, is that?
Yeah, so I'll walk through quickly what like the individual, whoops, wrong thing. So here's what these mastery topics are. And so basically the instructor can set how challenging they are. If this is going to be like an easy concept that maybe only takes 2 to 3 questions to prove mastery, versus adjectives may take 3 to 5 questions, or you could set like how difficult you want these to be. From there, that's an OpenClass like proprietary algorithm to assess like how to assess basically mastery and like how what percentage mastery a student has. But basically the algorithm prioritizes consistency. So if it says 3 to 5 correct questions, if the student gets 3 in a row, that'll be mastery. Versus if they start missing some questions, they're going to need to get more correct than just 3 to 5. So that's sort of like the reason why there's a range here is 6 to 11. Okay, that's either 6 in a row, or maybe it's 3 and then you miss one and then 4 or something like that. Like, does that make sense? Like, it's not necessarily always going to be 6 correct questions, but that's sort of like the bounds of the algorithm is at least 6 correct if it's 6 in a row correct, or if it's 11 where they miss a bunch of questions in between. But typically my advice for building out these question pools are, if you don't get it into like customizing mastery, probably 7 to 10 questions is good per assignment. Or if you want to add more of these concepts in here, I would recommend at least 2 to 3 more than the upper bound on these mastery concepts. So like if this is 2 to 3, I would recommend adding at least 5 questions pertaining to nouns. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Sure, no problem.
I actually have a question. Hi, this is Frady Maltz. Does this work for fill in the blank type of questions, or does it work better for multiple choice type questions?
So every question follows that same format as I mentioned. That fill in the blanks can definitely be part of it. Fill in the blanks are great questions because similar to like this question, what's an adjective? It encourages like self-generation and like that generation effect and retrieval practice. So if you wanted to write a multiple choice question, you would do that for the retrieval part of the question. So like in something like this is like a good fill in the blanks question, like in what year, or like whatever fill in the blanks question you want, that's your retrieval question. Students would be able to enter their response here, then submit their response, then they'll see the instructor's solution, and then it would still conclude with that multiple choice mastery question after the student reviews the feedback. So for the retrieval question, yeah, that can definitely be fill in the blanks. Just you'd sort of have to write the question like in that format. And then those would always conclude with that multiple choice mastery question, again, to make that feedback more interactive, more engaging, and also for OpenClass to then be able to strictly assess. Like it's very easy to say with a multiple choice question, yes, the student got it correct, or no, they missed it, and be able to use that in our calculation of mastery.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
So how long does it take an average faculty member to create an assignment?
So far our metrics are this takes about 45 minutes per assignment. And like I said, this has been like my biggest priority since January, is like reducing the barrier to entry, making these as easy as possible. So back in January with the first version of our assignment builder is taking about 6 hours per assignment. Version 2 is taking about 4 hours. And this current version is taking about 45 minutes. So it's really exciting progress. And like I said, one way to think of this is almost as like an investment in your classes, that you build these assignments out one time and you'll be able to use them for every semester after that when you teach the same courses. Just clone your assignments over. You can go in if you cover different things or change like your syllabus a little bit, you'll be able to go in, edit your assignments as you wish, and just republish, and just be able to crank these out in like a matter of like a minute instead of just like republishing these. But yeah, right now the expectation should be about 45 minutes per assignment. And that's just for the instructors that are building these out. For the instructors that are just sort of like using these assignments, so as we talked about, like in the collaborative setting, there could be some instructors that sort of like build out a bunch of these assignments and share them with other instructors. Those instructors would just have to clone them into their classes and then just be able to publish and sort of go and just use the assignments right away.
Okay, thank you. And then is it through Blackboard integration that the courses are created and the faculty who teach in the courses are assigned to those courses?
Yeah, so that would be step one, is the classes would have to already exist in Blackboard. And then you could almost think of OpenClass as this is an assignments plugin to Blackboard. So instead of using like Blackboard standard assignments, OpenClass is a tool to build better assignments that are automatically integrated and synced back to Blackboard. So they would have their class set up all through Blackboard, and then they'll be able to access OpenClass and sync these assignments up pretty seamlessly, to the point where for students, this really doesn't feel like an extra tool at all. It almost just feels like it's part of Blackboard. Like that's how sort of clean the integration is with that. But yeah, once the class is set up in Blackboard, you'll be able to access OpenClass and create a class for that Blackboard course.
Okay, so I think you answered this with previously with Anna, but just to clarify, if there are 4 or 5 faculty who are assigned to a specific course in Blackboard, they would not necessarily have a course in OpenClass where all of them have access to it.
Okay, so I understand. So actually, yes, they would. So basically, here's how it would work is, let's say there's 5 instructors on a Blackboard course, one of the instructors will be able to go to OpenClass and set up the OpenClass for that Blackboard course. And as soon as the one instructor does that, because of the Blackboard integration, it's pulling, okay, these 4 other instructors are also instructors for this course, and automatically set them as co-instructors on OpenClass. So through that collaboration is already there, that everything is automatic. These 5 instructors are teaching this class through OpenClass, and the collaboration on these assignments actually works really well. We've had a number of classes already with multiple instructors where basically an instructor would be able to go in, maybe one instructor writes 3 questions, another instructor writes 3 questions for that assignment, and they'll be able to see the other questions in that assignment and sort of be able to build these out together. So that could be one strategy instructors go about doing this. If there's 5 of them in a class, is having a few of them work on the same assignments together. Or it could be, I'm going to do the first week assignment, you're going to do the next week's assignment, they're going to do the next week's assignment, and so on.
Okay, and because they're all co-instructors in OpenClass, with each subsequent assignment, it will automatically pull from like previous instructors' assignments for that course.
Yes, exactly. Like all of the classes are together as part of one class. So if there's 5 instructors for this class in an OpenClass, they're all building out assignments here. And let's say this is like week 7 and like the 7th review assignment, it's going to pull questions from the previous 6 review assignments that are already in this class, regardless of who built those assignments out.
How many new questions versus old questions are built into, like if I create an assignment in week 10 that has 8 questions in it, 8 new concepts, and then as a student, I go in to take that assignment, I'll see those 8 questions, but then what is, how many more from before that?
Yeah, so roughly the goal is about an 80-20 split of 80% being current content that's being covered, 20% being sort of like sprinkled in from the previous assignments. And the OpenClass algorithms prioritize concepts that students struggled with earlier in the semester to continue to give them practice on especially concepts that they struggled with, but really all concepts covered previously in the course. OpenClass will handle that automatically, and it won't be like, do these 8 questions on this week first, and then these 4 questions from previous weeks. It'll be, okay, maybe there's 2 questions from this week, and then here's a previous question, like a review question, and then here's like a couple more from this week, and then a review question. Like they're all sort of like blended and mixed together within the assignment.
Okay, thank you.
No problem, thank you.
Alec, what is the timeline? I guess, when do you expect to have the integration, I guess, ironed out with our IT department?
So my full expectation, and I think it's the expectation of Dr. Bird as well, is to have everything completely set up and ready to go for spring classes. So like, you know, go on winter break or whatever, come back and have these assignments ready to go. From my end, I'm ready to set up the integration as soon as I'm connected with the LIU IT team. So for me, it should be a pretty quick process to get this going. It's just sort of a matter of having like LIU, I guess, enable that integration. But yeah, the expectation for me, and I think Dr. Bird as well, is to have this fully ready to go for spring classes. So like mid-January or early January or whatever, having everything set.
Thank you. And another question, is it possible to get like a demo student account and faculty account so we could play with it a little bit?
Yes, absolutely. I'll send that information after this. I'm trying to think, I'm not sure, Tina or Denise, if you have any feedback on like the best way to correspond with faculty, if we should build out like a little like list of like who's interested in using this. But I'll send this information to Tina and Denise for now, and like we could sort of try to set that up, like some sort of like mailing list for like questions and like getting things going like that. But yeah, I'll provide like an instructor account and be able to demo it as a student too, and being able to provide the instructor and student demos, as you mentioned.
Yeah, I'm just asking because we have close to 200 students, so it's always nice to not only have the instructor view, but also be able to see what the students are seeing before we release these assignments.
Yeah, and I'll be able to, I'll send some like demo things to like play around with after this, But one of the things also, as you're building out these assignments, there's this little preview icon. So you could preview like, this is what the assignment's going to look like for students. So it's not like you're completely blind. Like you'll be able to see like, okay, here's the question page. You'll be able to click the feedback and be able to see, okay, after the student submits their response, here's what they'll see as feedback. And yeah, so you'll be able to preview these assignments as you're building them out. And if you need anything further, I'm available, like I said, for as much support and like being able to help instructors beyond just these basic previews. Oops. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, sure, no problem.
I have one question. Do all students see the same questions, or do they get individualized questions based on how they performed?
Yeah, so these assignments are generated on an individual basis. Basically, that's again like part of the machine learning algorithm to be able to like personalize these for students and identify sort of like the best questions for given students. But as like a basic example, imagine you have 10 questions in your question pool and one student that understands the concepts quickly and demonstrates mastery quickly. Maybe they'll only go through 4 of your questions versus another student that struggles with the questions, with the concepts more, may get more questions. Maybe they have to go through 8 or 9 questions before they demonstrate mastery. And then as well with like the spaced part and like pulling from previous review assignments, every student is probably going to be unique in that regard because those are prioritized based on concepts that students struggled with earlier. So, you know, a given student may struggle with topic A early on and another student may struggle with topic B. The review questions will be slightly different that they're asked in ensuing assignments. But yeah, at least in terms of like the order and like the questions that students see, that'll be unique per student.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions on this? Awesome. Well, thank you everyone so much for taking the time here this afternoon. Again, this is a project I'm super passionate about and excited about. So it's really excited for me to be able to share this with other instructors. And I sincerely hope this will be something that can help improve learning in your classes. So far, the reaction from students has been honestly overwhelmingly positive, and like that's really what's fueled me even more. Where we've had like students basically emailing instructors asking for more of these assignments. So I hope that you find the same true in your classes. As I mentioned, I'm very available to provide as much or as little support. Some instructors really want like that hands-off approach where like I just get out of the way, don't do anything. They're able to just like figure this out and go. Versus other instructors may need a little bit more support in getting acclimated to the system. And whatever you decide, I'm very available to, you know, even do like one-on-one workshops and like help individual instructors figure these out, or answering questions via email or the support system. Actually, I'm going to share my screen really quickly one more time to show what the support looks like. Is basically as an instructor from this options, you'll be able to click a link for support and create a ticket here. And then I'll be able to, or somebody from my team will be able to respond directly to those tickets. So very available to provide like as much detailed support as needed. And yeah, I'm really excited to be working with you all and whoever's interested and hopefully getting this going through LIU. But yeah, thank you so much for taking the time, and I'll communicate with Tina and Denise from here to figure out like the best way to go forward in terms of like communication and like getting information out to you all. But stay tuned from me. I'll keep you all posted on when the LIU integration with Blackboard is set to go. So you'll all be able to log in and sort of like play around with the system yourself. It's pretty easy to create like a sandbox, like playground class through OpenClass that's not integrated to Blackboard. So you can just like demo, like here's what it looks like building out an assignment or anything like that. And then be able to create classes that are then integrated with Blackboard. But yeah, stay tuned on that. I'll continue to communicate with Dr. Bird and the IT team and Denise and Tina about getting all this integration stuff and everything else set. Other than that, as I mentioned, this recording, or excuse me, this session has been recorded. So I'll also share that with Tina and Denise to distribute, and we'll figure out that communication channel. if you want to go back and like review, okay, this is what this looks like for students, or this is how you build these out, or whatever else from there. But yeah, thank you all so much. I really appreciate you all taking the time here.
Hi, sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you, but thank you for sharing all of this with us. I just had a couple of quick questions, and I'm sorry if you already answered this before. So this is going to be separate from Blackboard and ExamSoft, right? So it would be another data source for us, basically.
Yeah, so this is an external tool that does integrate with Blackboard, completely separate of ExamSoft. I'm not too familiar with them, but basically this will connect within Blackboard. You'll be able to almost think of it as like an assignments plugin. Like this is a better way to build assignments than through Blackboard, but you'll be able to build these assignments out through OpenClass, and then they'll automatically like be posted through Blackboard. Assignments will be shared there. You'll be able to sync grades back and forth. So it integrates pretty well with Blackboard, but yeah, this is like an external tool. Like I'm not in any way associated with Blackboard.
Right, or ExamSoft. I'm just saying in terms of, for us as faculty, data management. I mean, this is gonna let us pull data out like as an Excel file too, right? Or no?
Yeah, so you'll be able to download it for student grades as a CSV file. And let me share my screen one more time here. So as I showed in the metrics view, you'll be able to download grades here that exports as a CSV. And also, as you like write questions and build assignments, you can always download your questions. So it's pretty easy to just like export your own content as a CSV. If you're worried about like, oh, all of my stuff is just on OpenClass, even though I do hope sincerely that this will be something that you'll all be able to use for hopefully your entire teaching careers, honestly, but at least have that investment that you build out these assignments and you'll be able to continue to use them for your future iterations of your classes.
Right, so I just mean in terms of like, if I wanted to, let's say, compare student performance on one of my questions or one of my assignments, and I wanted to compare that across years, like if I use the same assignment, would I be able to, you know, export that data and then run my own sort of analysis on that stuff? Or
yeah, so you can definitely download the data now and run your own sort of analysis with that. And you're actually starting to talk about things in my product roadmap that aren't yet incorporated in OpenClass. But that's one of the things I've been thinking about a lot, is just this idea. I know from a lot of the instructors I've been working with at the University of Arizona, one of their like major concerns just in general as instructors is just a lack of feedback they receive on how well students are responding to their teaching materials. And I think people in any profession always want to be like as good as you can be, like as good of a teacher as you can be, or whatever your industry is. That I hope to add that at some point soon, where you'll be able to directly through OpenClass compare student performance and like how well students are retaining different concepts by semester, by year, whatever. To be able to see, hopefully, you know, students reacting like more positively and like being able to always like adapt your assignments and improve them and improve your teaching resources for future iterations of your classes. So hopefully soon in OpenClass it'll be possible. Before that, if you want to do your own aggregations, yeah, you're definitely able to download like these CSVs and do whatever you want with that data.
yeah, and I guess also just from a workload point of view, a lot of us were forced to create a lot of our assessments through a different program, ExamSoft, and that uses, I believe, CSV Excel as well. And if we were able to transfer ExamSoft questions into OpenClass or anything like that, is that a possibility? Or
Yeah, so good question. That's definitely a possibility. I've been, since we're working with the University of Arizona right now, I've been working with D2L on like their quiz export feature. But I would say if you could send me like an example export CSV, I could look into like their formatting and be able to parse out the correct information. Kind of how it works with like the D2L export import is, since the D2L quizzes are just multiple choice quizzes and the OpenClass questions require like that retrieval question, solution, and then the multiple choice question, it'll just sort of like make it easier and like sort of fill in like half of these questions for you. And then you'll be able to—
Exactly. And I believe we also have to map our questions to kind of similar to the way we're building this mastery concept in your OpenClass, right, Tina? I mean, there's just a lot that went into already the building of questions in a different assessment platform. And I know that a lot of faculty would probably have an easier time playing with this if they knew they could just move things over and play with it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think this would replace ExamSoft or summative assessments.
Right, it's not going to replace it, but I mean, a lot of this mapping and whatever we're doing with building these assignments in OpenClass is actually very similar to, I mean, it's more than what we're doing in ExamSoft, but I think it would be easier to then like redoing, especially the multiple choice questions part.
Yeah, so let me just comment on that real quick. First of all, that's been one of the use cases that a lot of instructors have been using OpenClass for, is sort of this pain point that instructors seem to get a bunch of emails from students like, hey, what's going to be on the test? Or just like, especially with large classes, just students emailing or asking the same questions over and over again. So these test questions can definitely be put in OpenClass and have students reviewing these beforehand. And one of the pillars of OpenClass, the three pillars basically are automation, ambition, and accessibility. So with regards to automation, like that's exactly like what you're talking about is I want these to be as easy as possible for instructors to build out assignments through this. So if you already have like a bank of, here's a CSV of 30 different multiple choice questions, that's definitely something I'm very interested in, like helping an instructor import these. So I would say the next step in being able to facilitate this is if you could email me like an example of like, here's some of like my CSVs, or have Tina or Denise email them to me. I could be able to look at like what exactly I'm parsing from that to make it easy for instructors to just import quickly into OpenClass and just get these assignments going much quicker.
Thanks.
Sure. Cool. Any other questions or comments or things like that? Awesome. Cool. I'm going to stop the recording now. Let's see.